Hello, Aquarius, Sun, Moon, and Risings. Welcome to your June 2022 horoscope. My name is Cailin, and today I'm going to be covering the major transits for the month ahead using tropical astrology and the whole sign system. I strongly recommend that you watch your ascendant sign horoscope first and foremost because it will be the most accurate for you overall, generally speaking. Having said that, you can still watch this horoscope if you are an Aquarius sun or moon. The sun sign horoscope will tell you more about your career and your big goals and dreams for the future, whereas your moon sign horoscope will tell you more about your family, your living circumstances, your home life, as well as your emotional health and well-being. So let's get into it. On the 3rd of June, Mercury will station direct in the sign of Taurus at 26 degrees in your 4th house. Now, Mercury will have been retrograde in not only your 4th house in Taurus, but also in your 5th house in Gemini as well. So by the time we get to the 3rd of June, you may have made some big changes to your business if you own your own business. Maybe you rebranded it, maybe you restructured it or renamed it, or perhaps you changed the services that you offer or the products that you sell. And on a different level, some of you may have heard back from an ex. You may have gotten back together with your ex. You may have gone through a breakup, or you could actually have gotten back in touch with your children or one or more of your children, especially if you had been estranged from one another, or if you weren't on speaking terms, you can actually hash things out. Now, some of you may have decided while Mercury was retrograde that you want to change your living circumstances. People may have been moving in or moving out. You may have refinanced your home, and maybe you successfully applied for a home loan, and that could have been a long and drawn out process with the Mercury retrograde. Nonetheless, you may now, on a different level, be talking to your parents or certain family members that you have not been in contact with. And in terms of the Mercury retrograde period, it's from the 10th of May till the 2nd or 3rd of June, depending where you live in the world. But there is always a 2-week post shadow period. So things can finally start calming down after about the 17th or the 18th of June. Now, on the 4th or 5th of June, depending where you live in the world, Saturn will station retrograde in Aquarius in your 1st house at 25 degrees. So, in terms of the dates, it doesn't really matter too much, but just to tell you why I'm saying it depends where you live in the world. For those of you who are in Australia, like myself, Saturn will station retrograde on the 5th of June. If you're in the US, that'll be on the 4th of June. And for everyone in between, I have got no idea. Well, actually, for Europe and for the UK, it'll be the 5th of June, but it doesn't really matter because it's a 5-month transit. Saturn will be retrograde until the 23rd of October. Saturn spends 5 months being retrograde every single year. And because Saturn is retrograde in your 1st house, this indicates, and this is especially for you Aquarius risings and to a degree suns as well, who are around the 17 to 26 degree mark. This can see you putting in a lot more effort into working on yourself, bettering yourself. If your moon is in Aquarius, this could be to do with your family and your interactions with them, and maybe setting clearer boundaries with them. On the whole, though, this can see you changing up your goals and priorities, or maybe you're just doubling down on them and working a lot harder to achieve them. So whenever a planet is retrograde, we're essentially putting in way more effort than we normally have to achieve whatever outcome it is that we're going for. And because Saturn is your ruling planet, this can see you basically changing up your priorities when it comes to how much work you're taking on, how many responsibilities you're taking on. For those of you who are parents, this can be a time where you are struggling to enforce certain rules within your household. And on a different level, the 1st house represents you. It's your physical body. Saturn is your chart ruler. And when Saturn is retrograde, we can actually, well, Saturn is transiting our first house and it is also retrograde, we can actually achieve physical goals that we have. So maybe there's a health journey that you want to go on, maybe you're trying to lose weight, maybe you're trying to sculpt and tone. So you can certainly have success with that. And on a different level, because it's your chart ruler and it's retrograde, this can just see you becoming more reflective. Maybe you are turning inwards a lot more. Maybe you're about thinking about what you want to achieve, and maybe you're sort of not retreating, but sort of going into hermit mode, or just prioritizing you as you should. Putting yourself first. So Saturn rules over our ability to say no to things. So this can see you learning how to say no to the things that you don't want to do anymore. And with Aquarius, it's not so much because, you know, you're a people pleaser or anything like that. It can be about towing the line between, what is going to make you happy and what doesn't make you happy. And for some of you, it could be about um, no longer thinking about, okay, is this too mainstream? Is this conventional or unconventional? I'm interested in this. I want to pursue it. I don't care if it's too popular or whatever. It's about pursuing whatever it is that excites you. And you can certainly be more conscious of your time because Saturn rules over time. So you can be very aware of how long it takes you to do things, how much effort you are putting into things, how much effort you're putting into yourself. Is it worth potentially reconsidering the things that are draining your time and your energy and giving up these things, saying no more to these things? So moving on to the 11th/12th of June, depending where you live in the world, we're going to see Venus and Uranus form a conjunction on this date in the sign of Taurus at 16 degrees in your fourth house. So Uranus is your other ruling planet. Usually I sort of go by Saturn and what Saturn is doing, but nonetheless, when Uranus is involved, this can represent the action that you are taking and the decisions that you are taking. So because Venus will be conjunct in your fourth house, or conjunct Uranus, I should say, this can see there being shocking developments and sudden changes to your property and living circumstances, whether you are buying a home, renting, and also the fourth house is, of course, connected to family. So let's go through a number of different ways that this can play out. With property and your living circumstances, this can see you buying a property either unexpectedly or the process is very, very quick. Just as an example, maybe you end up buying the first place that you see, or perhaps you were sort of just like checking out the property market, seeing what's out there. Maybe your intention was to buy at the end of the year, as an example, and you see a house or an apartment and you're like, I have to have this. I've got to roll the dice and give it a shot. So in a way, there could be something which is kind of premature about you initiating this relocation process. Maybe you weren't even planning to buy at all, but then you just see a place and you're like, this is perfect. I want to move. I want to buy it. And for some of you who own your property, maybe you were never planning to sell your property, or it was way down the track until you would look at that. But maybe you receive an offer that you can't refuse. There may be some unforeseeable circumstances which prompt you to feel like you have to have to sell. And just something to note, and this is that this conjunction will be making an opposition to Moon in Scorpio in your 10th house, and the Moon rules over your 6th house. So this is kind of random, but just be careful about squatters. So if you have an investment property, or even if your home is vacant, maybe you have a really huge property and you just discover people squatting in this property. And I'm saying this because of the opposition to the Moon in Scorpio, and with the Moon ruling over the 6th house, it's um the moon is property, Scorpio's mutual resources. The moon ruling the sixth house is like, conflict and also tenants, but this is sort of like something which is, unexpected or not meant to be happening, especially because of the opposition to Uranus. So random, I know, but just throwing it out there. Do be careful about securing valuables and possessions inside your property. I'm saying this because Uranus is a planet which is connected to criminal activity. The conjunction's in your fourth house. It's at 16 degrees. This is the Cancerian degree, which again represents property. And then the opposition to Moon in Scorpio indicates a potential for theft of something that's on your property. So on a different note, maybe you're relocating to a foreign country. This could be a snap decision. And I'm saying this because Uranus represents, doing something crazy or unexpected. It's your ruling planet. So this could be a decision that you're making. And then we've got Venus ruling over your ninth house, which represents foreign countries. So moving along though, if you are a renter or a landlord, this could see one or more of the following things playing out in your life. A tenant could abruptly move out or give notice. Your landlord could show up unannounced, even, despite whether that's illegal where you live. I'm sure it's illegal everywhere. The landlord could decide that they want to sell the property or move in themselves. And maybe, there are people visiting your property for an inspection and you're a renter, and there was a miscommunication where they didn't tell you, hey, property is on the market or we're getting new renters in or whatever. So there could be some sort of mix up or confusion here. And just to recap, this date is the 11th/12th of June, plus or minus a day or two. And on a different level, people could be moving in unexpectedly. They could be moving out unexpectedly. This could be a family member, a flatmate. You could be the one moving out. And on the family level, this can lead to there being some kind of argument, could even be an explosive argument or outburst. It could be over something random. I imagine it would be totally uncharacteristic or out of the blue or both. And on a different note, you may discover information about your family, which is just like, and I'm saying this because Uranus rules over divine knowledge and sudden insights and breakthroughs. Maybe you're discovering that you were adopted or that you have a child that you didn't know about. So that's just a few different ways that this can play out. Now, on the 15th/16th of June, depending where you live in the world, Mars and Chiron will form a conjunction in Aries at 15 degrees in your third house. So this conjunction takes place about once every 2 years, and Mars represents how we take action. It represents our willpower, our independence. It is the planet which represents aggression and conflict. It also rules over did I say arguments? Surely. Anyway, it can represent having arguments and disputes with other people. And then Chiron was initially classed as an asteroid. It is actually now classed as a centaur. And I'm not talking about, ye old half man, half horse. I'm talking about planetary centaur. You can look that up if you want to know what that is. In any case, though, it is based on the Greek mythological creature, which was Chiron the centaur, and it really represents our core spiritual wound and our ability to achieve spiritual enlightenment. And I'm saying this because in Greek mythology, Chiron was a very gifted healer and teacher. And essentially, one day he was wounded fatally by a poisoned arrow, and he was unable to heal himself. So, because he was not fully mortal, he was unable to die. So, he lived with this painful wound. So, this can represent our pain and our suffering, but also our ability to recognize how we can turn this pain and suffering into something which can heal ourselves or heal other people. So when we experience a Mars Chiron conjunction, this can see us being very painfully and acutely aware of what our triggers are. And it's kind of like there's no way to ignore this. I'm sure a lot of you are going to feel it in a very profound way. The reason I place a lot of importance on this is because I really find in my chart readings that natal Chiron can really like unlock the key to your whole chart. It can remove creative blockages, intimacy blockages, the understanding and awareness of it, and um, what role it's playing in your life can lead to some pretty profound realizations. And I have Mars conjunct Chiron natally in my chart. So, anyway, because this is occurring in your third house, this can represent painful relationships that you have with your siblings, relatives, be they cousins, aunts, or uncles, friends, co workers, maybe even neighbors. And because the 15th degree is, first of all, the Gemini degree, and this is occurring in your third house, I really can't shake the notion that a very important conversation will take place around this point in time. And it could be with one of those people, or they could be striking up the conversation with you. It could go either way. Now, Chiron represents not only the ways in which we can be hurt and experience some sort of emotional, spiritual, or even physical wound, but it also represents the ways in which we maybe inadvertently or subconsciously, inadvertently or consciously hurting other people. So, on one hand, you may be going to them and saying, hey, this is what hurt me in the past, or when you do these sorts of things, I don't appreciate it. Or they may actually be coming to you and saying something of a similar thing. Maybe they're saying, hey, can you please stop this behavior? Or I was really upset when you said or did XYZ. Now, I do see this as a very profound potential, I guess, to heal this relationship and understand their point of view better, or vice versa. Maybe you have tried to say this before and it just didn't land right and they didn't get it. But this time, you perhaps are articulating it in a way where it's like, wow, message received, and let's try and work on this relationship. So you can certainly move beyond the pain, beyond the suffering. Um, in the most extreme cases, this can see you cutting off your relationship with a sibling or with a relative or a friend. Maybe you're recognizing that you've gone as far as you can with this person, and now anymore, and this would be physically harmful to me in some way, shape, or form. On a different note, the third house represents your mentality. So this can see you getting to the root cause of why you have found yourself maybe in like a mental rut. Maybe you're feeling quite pessimistic. Maybe you have a glass half empty mentality or attitude. And this can see you being very consciously aware of the fact that this is going on. Perhaps you used to think that you were just being like sarcastic and funny, and it's like your dry wit coming through, but maybe there's like a penny drop moment where you're like, oh, this is actually a reflection of my inner state, and in particular my inner mental state. So lastly, with this, because the third house represents communications, as in writing communications, videos, reporting, um, all kinds of communications, this can see you being really vulnerable and bearing all. And, if there is a story that you feel you want to tell, but you haven't been able to bring yourself to put pen to paper or to reveal your story, this conjunction between Mars and Chiron can illuminate the reasons as to why you are procrastinating, or why you are scared or fearful to take this next step. This can see you understanding why it is hard for you to be honest about this painful experience. And for some of you, you may finally be speaking your truth. Perhaps the Mars Chiron conjunction can see you releasing a book, putting a video out, putting some content out, or sharing your experiences either via communications or in an online space, or perhaps you are confiding in a sibling or a relative or friend or even a co-worker about your experiences. And on that note, let's have a look at something more lighthearted and and positive. On the 22nd slash 23rd of June, Venus is going to enter the sign of Gemini in your fifth house, and it will be there until about the 17th or the 18th of July. Wherever Venus goes, this is where we can experience some sort of blessing or peace or things going well. Things are a lot easier. Wherever Venus is, she makes it a lot more pleasurable. And, the fifth house is connected to our hobbies, passions, creativity. It represents love, dating, romance, owning our own business, children as well. So, with Venus here, this can see you enjoying your hobbies and passions more. Maybe you're making more time for this. Maybe you're feeling more creative. Maybe you'll start writing a book, or you'll get back to your love of writing. This can see you becoming more sociable. There may be parties and events which are quite fun, which you're invited to attend. This can see you actually going on a little vacation as well, or just having some sort of exciting and uplifting experience. With those of you who own your own business, this can see you feeling more optimistic about your business, maybe expanding it further. With Venus ruling over your ninth house, which represents your vision for the future, perhaps you are um, perhaps you're seeing the full potential of your business and getting very excited about it. And, for some of you, this could see there being an increase in import and export of your goods, or perhaps your business is reaching an international level with Venus ruling over your ninth house. Now, on the dating front, this can see you starting to date again, more having more success in that department. Certainly, a new romance could be beginning. You may just be enjoying going on more dates with your partner. Maybe they're more romantic, or your sex life can improve. You may have like a casual sexual experience. This could be a fling, or it could be like a casual, like friends with benefits situation, which starts up. And then lastly, with this one, for those of you who have children, you could be enjoying more time with them. You could just be getting along with them better. Maybe you'll be doing something creative with them and bonding with them. And even if you don't have kids, the fifth house is connected to children, just generally speaking. So you could be enjoying time with your friends' kids, or your nieces, or your nephews, or with children that you teach. And with Venus ruling over your ninth house, maybe you're enjoying time with your grandchildren. Now, on the 28th of June, we are going to see Neptune station retrograde in the sign of Pisces at 25 degrees in your second house. So the second house is connected to your finances, money, resources, valuables, and possessions. Neptune, just as an energy, the energy of this planet can represent confusion, idealism, losses, deception, fraud, but then also it can represent where we have rose-colored or rose-tinted glasses. It also represents charity and donations. And essentially, with Neptune being retrograde here, this is a good thing when it comes to your finances, because you're actually able to um, figure out where you are spending too much money. Maybe you've been sort of confused about your budget, or where money's been going. How do I have this little money, or what have I been spending on? So this can sort of invert the energy of Neptune, where you are a lot more conscious of what you're spending money on. And perhaps this can see you being quite honest and real with yourself about the ways in which you may have been deceiving yourself with finances, whether that is spending more than you have, or more than you're able to pay back. And on a different level, it could just be that you have a very subtle shift in your priorities where finances and resources are concerned, or this could be a change in your values altogether, as represented by the second house. And then lastly, with this transit, the second house is connected to food and eating habits to an extent. So this can see you being aware of how different foods affect your energy levels. And this could be a really good thing. Maybe there's a certain food that you've been eating, whether this is like a specific food or it could be like lactose or gluten, and maybe you were experiencing lowered levels of energy and vitality. And now with Neptune being retrograde here for 5 months from the 28th of June till the 4th of December, this can see you having some conscious awareness over the impact of the food that you are eating and anything that you are ingesting. And Neptune, like Saturn, spends 5 months retrograde every year, so it's not necessarily a big deal, but I do like to mention when we are going to have planets being direct and being retrograde. So lastly, for the month, I'm excited to tell you that I'm going to end this horoscope on a very big high, because we're going to have Venus making a sextile to Jupiter. And both Venus and Jupiter are considered to be fortunate planets which are connected to wealth, prosperity, money, and abundance. So sextiles in astrology represent a very harmonious energy. This can be seen as an opportunity or something which is going to help you or bring a blessing into your life. The only catch is that you must act on it. Okay, so I've given this example in a few of my other horoscopes, but essentially, if someone is like, hey, here's $20, go and buy yourself dinner, and they leave it on the table for you. That's sort of the sextile energy. It's an opportunity being left on the table for you. This person isn't putting the money in your pocket or putting it in your wallet. You actually have to be like, okay, thanks, man. Like, I'll go and get myself a burger or whatever it is that you're going to eat. So make sure that whatever opportunity is coming through, that you are being very explicit in accepting the offer. So let's just drill down into this aspect a little bit. We've got Venus in Gemini in your 5th house, sextiling Jupiter in Aries in your 3rd house. If we just combine like the key themes of the 3rd house and the 5th house, this is connected to creativity, your hobbies, passions, owning your own business, romance, and having some sort of exciting and joyous experience. Now the 3rd house represents friends, collaborations, connections with other people. It is also connected to your communications pieces. And in terms of how this can play out for you, this can see you for those of you who are maybe writing your own book, or you've like put together some sort of communications piece, this can see you receiving advice on it, maybe positive feedback, encouragement to put yourself out there. Someone could be, you could meet someone who is in the industry. So, for example, if you are a budding writer or reporter, this could see you meeting with someone who can give you a leg up or who can introduce you to someone else. And this could in turn expand your wider network. And I'm saying this because Jupiter rules over your 11th house, which represents your wider network. And it also rules over your 2nd house, which is connected to money, finances, and resources. So you could actually be landing a contract for something that you've written or for a communications piece that you've developed. And you could be making sales in your own business, and something that you have written or produced, whether this is a report, a YouTube video, an essay, an article, a podcast, this could be circulated and reach a wider audience. And perhaps someone is offering to interview you or spread the word about whatever it is that you have created or done. And it certainly doesn't need to be communications based. this could be anything creative that you've done. It could be a piece of artwork that you've painted or drawn. It could be connected to an acting performance or even a sporting performance. And this could have a positive impact on your dating life and your romantic life. So, a romance could take off. This could be with a friend, a coworker, maybe even a neighbor. This could take off very quickly. This person could be of a different cultural background to you, or they could be quite cultured. And by that, I mean, you know, they could speak a lot of languages, they could have a lot of knowledge about different countries and history, and, you know, just be very well read, essentially. Or this person could be very adventurous, they could be a coach in some way or very inspirational. And I'm still talking about a new romance starting off, by the way, and what this person would be like. You could meet them at a party, someone could introduce them to you, you could meet them while you're on a short trip or while you're doing something which is pleasurable. And by that, I mean, you could be, you know, eating out at a restaurant, or this could be while you're actually at school or taking a class. So, lastly, with this transit, it could be that you are invited to a party or some sort of celebration. So it's an opportunity for you to socialize with other people. And this could actually lead you to joining a new community. It's 333 right now here in Melbourne, Australia. So I feel like that's a confirmation for you. In any case, guys, I do see this as being something which is very exciting for you. So on that note, thank you so much for joining me here today. If you've enjoyed this reading, please give the video a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more content on this channel, please hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to purchase a one-on-one reading with me, you can do so via the link in the description box below. All of my readings are done via Zoom video call, which can be recorded. So this is the format, essentially. Enjoy your month ahead, Aquarius, and I will see you guys in July.